But you know what the question is?
Biden County.
What's your mic count?
Haven't checked since November.
Okay. Yeah, you know what I do. Yeah, well, we're gonna talk about that just a minute. So everybody have a good new year so far.
Yeah.
It's right before we get into that, we'll go the rounds and have our secretary. Is there anything that you'd like to announce or share?
Yeah, so the 2026 membership application, if you were a member in 2025, as you know, as the new year rolls around, you need one for 2026. And you have to fill out the new paperwork for it, and then you can pay on PayPal. But also I have a few more of these if you would like to do it by paper. I have a couple of more of these left, and I'll bring more in the February meeting. So to be a member of the Colorado Beekeepers Association, you have to have this filled out and paid for by our March meeting, which is March 11th. So you get a free membership into there if you join. So outside of that, I have the information. If you weren't at the last meeting, it's easier to read this way. The Honeybee Festival that's usually in Palisade is now going to be, it's called the Colorado Honeybee Festival on April 11th. And it will be at Cross Orchards Farms from 10 to 4. So it's made a change from Palisade to the Cross Orchards historic site off of Patterson or G Road, whatever it's. No, it's F Road. So anyway, that's it.
What do you get with your annual membership? You not only are have the complimentary membership to the Colorado Beekeeping Association, we also have we do a number of classes, road shows that you have access to for free. The first one is Beekeeping 101. And then we do a seminar, which includes lunch. And then we also have advanced beekeeping, includes lunch. We also give you access to the wax dipping at a very discounted rate. And the ability to say you're a member.
Also the big recipe.
Let's do what?
Vaporizers.
Oh, yeah, there's a number. There's a number of equipment that is available to you. One of them is the oxalic acid vaporizer and then honey extraction equipment.
Yeah.
And right now we only have hand crankers, but
They're all hand crankers, but
okay. And
But
treasurer. What's that?
Summer.
Oh, yeah, the Colorado State Beekeeping has their annual road shows. One of them's on the east slope, and one of them's in Rifle. So, and that also is where they have speakers and yeah.
And it was really good last year. I really enjoyed it.
and another benefit if you are part of the state, and you happen to be in the Front Range, there are different stores that give you a discount if you go to there. But of course, everybody's on the Front Range, so.
Report the association current balance, $3,934.73. And then we have a PayPal account that has $446.17 in it. Part. And then we're collecting these while we're here at the meeting, so like cash, check, or you can do online. Which get y'all registered.
Online is the easiest. It takes less than a couple minutes. And done.
Yeah, it makes it simpler for us because it goes into a spreadsheet and we can just copy and paste and do what we need to do. Otherwise we're typing hundreds and hundreds of lines of, you know.
And PayPal notifies us when you've made your payment. Don't pay by MasterCard or Visa. Was that still down at the bottom?
No, I think I got that
Okay,
fixed.
never mind.
You take cash?
Yeah.
The officer.
Yeah, so I don't have a whole lot. Jason did mention that, about the beekeeping 101 and the advanced beekeeping. Those are probably would be in the like February, March. How many people are interested in something like that? But let's go with 101 first, because how many would be the 101? Okay, and how many for the advance? Okay, we'll try to set some dates and then I will get some, we'll get some sign up sheets sent out so that
That
we.
is hands-on, as well. We have, I'll have a number of beehives there, so, you'll be able to do the very specific things we talk about. Also have we'll do a splitting class as well, and that'll be in March, and so we'll have that. That'll be at that J and 24 road, area. And so if you're interested in the how to do the many different ways to do splits, and we'll be giving you opportunity to do a split. And that way, if you mess it up, it's not your hive. Anyway, so that's a couple of things there.
And then the other one will be, it's maybe some road shows in the summer. You guys, if you think you have the ability to host, let us know so we can kind of figure out where it was. The last one we did, we went to Jason's 20 in his J Road yard, and then we went to a couple other actual houses so you could see some different stuff. So if you've got something unique, like you happen to have a top bar, you have a flow hive, something that's a little out of the ordinary, and you think you've got room to have 20 people come strump around your apiary, come talk to me and we'll see if we can figure out something to do a little bit later, just so everybody can kind of get it. That's one of the neat things we learned from Denver was when they came over here and showed us, get some, get some different aspects on how people do things. Okay. Other than that, website, I've been very, very busy trying to keep up with things, so I haven't had a chance to update a whole lot of stuff. I did clean up some of the website stuff, the old stuff that was on there. We definitely could use, found some new websites or some new research. I could definitely use to update or in the news section, because that hasn't been updated for like almost 9 months. So pictures are always welcome. I finally got rid of most of the pink beehives that have been there forever. So.
And our vice president.
Yes. Couple things. First of all, almost every year in May, I have a road show to my apiary in Eckhart. Won't be doing that this year. Health problems. I'll be probably hobbling around with a knee replacement. So won't be doing that. Second of all, the Delta Beekeepers is this coming Monday, the 19th, 6:30. I think it's 860 Highway 92. It's the Oddfellows Hall. They're right in Delta. Everyone's welcome if you'd like to come. There's no sign up. It's not a club you become a member of like here. It's affiliated with the state. It's just a bunch of people to get together and talk about bees. So if you'd like to come out, we'd like to have you.
I know. Winter beekeeping. Didn't know you was a beekeeper in the wintertime, did you? First of all, we're gonna talk about some beekeeping myths. Common misconceptions on how to avoid them. First of all, myth number one, bees don't need food in the winter. They do need food, that's why they store honey. That's what the honey is. And if they don't have enough, or if they've been going through the stores, and this is very important, we're gonna talk about that in just a minute, that you probably, the very large beehives that you're overwintering are getting light, and if they'll need some intervention, it'll probably be dangerously light into this month. And so they won't make it at this rate with the temperatures that we've been having. Okay, how much weight is enough? So there's a couple ways that you see here, he is lifting it from the side, give you an idea. The weight, when you pick it up and you hold that weight, if you've done that in the fall, right before you were buttoning them up for the winter, you kind of felt that 100 pounds. Well, this will give you, that's one of the easiest ways. Here they got actual scale that he's weighing them. Again, we're running about 100 pounds. That hive should run around 100 pounds and that equals that 60, 70 pounds worth of honey over winter. And they've been going through the stores. Your bees are flying today. Again. The problem with that is they fly, they go out, they're looking for forage and there's no forage. They might be looking for water, but the thing is they go out, they eat burning carbs, they come back and they gotta refuel. So that's whenever they break cluster, anything over 45 degrees, they're breaking cluster. At 50 degrees, that's ambient temperature. Inside temperature is gonna be even more, and so your foragers are flying. And at least they're doing cleansing flights, but for the vast majority of them, they're looking because of the temperatures are bumping up there. And there's zero forage right now. So they're burning through their stores. Just know that. Say, well, you thought they were doing good, but we're talking about, so emergency feeding. Here we have on the top bar, they just like a quilt board type of setup, except where they just put some sugar cake in there or a fondant just right above the inner cover. If you're going to do that, do not put anything on top of the hole in the inner cover. They need to come up and be able to access that. And this is a commercially prepared fondant. You can make fondant. The problem with that is you got to be real careful not to overcook the sugar. Because it will become toxic. The hydroxymethylfurfural is what it's called, the actual component that is developed with sugar that has been boiled for too long. So, and it becomes toxic. So a lot of people just open up the lid and on top of the inner cover, put some sugar, just some raw sugar. White cane sugar. Do not use brown sugar or powdered sugar. And between beet sugar and cane sugar is the best. Okay. Some people will mix this up with a couple of different things. It will make the sugar cakes, and if you're going to do that, then you can put in a tablespoon of vinegar, and that'll help keep mold down and also help with the gut. But anyway. So that's emergency feeding. The other thing is some are talking about doing open feeding. And if you don't have a way to put in a frame feeder in the inside, you want to do open feeding where the bees will be able to take in 2 to 1 liquid. Then make sure that that liquid is warm. Okay, don't leave it out overnight. Warm sugar water or warm sugar syrup, they'll be able to take a lot easier. The problem with that is that cold nights is going to get down to 30 degrees and they still got to dehydrate that enough to be able to turn it into a viable source of carbohydrate. So that 2 to 1, that means 2 parts sugar, 1 part water. And you can even cheat it down a little bit to 2.3 sugar and 0.7 water, it's just, but make sure that it is emulsified so that it becomes clear. That water it's not cloudy. That means your sugar is all the way melted. And you can pour in just a little cap in a gallon feeder, 1 little cap of vinegar. And that's also a way to keep the gut health going. So anybody else, any questions on the feeding?
White vinegar or apple cider vinegar?
White.
A lot of people will put a box, an empty box with no frames on top of the inner cover. Then you can pour the sugar in there. You can go buy a 5-pound bag of sugar and just dump it around the edges. And then put your telescoping cover on top of that. If you've got to do it, if it's an emergency, you go out there, all the bees are way up at the top, they're coming out the hole, they got nothing to eat. You can feed them like that in no time at all. Sugar's cheap.
Yeah, and then again, it's emergency feeding. Anything's better than nothing. And, the sugar syrup. Well, again, if it's warm, when you put it out there, they'll take it down real quick. If it's cold, it takes them forever. So, and then at night, bring it in. Don't leave it out there. Whatever you're using for an open feeder. How many understand what open feeding is? It's not a bottle, it's just in an open container. Where put some straw in there and they can land on open container with either a bucket or throw some straw, so it's something that they're able to land on and take it down, take it and take it back in. So if they need it, they'll find it in a hurry. Yeah. Well, that's perfect, yeah. I would not leave that sitting out and, I mean, they'll rob it out, yeah, you can do that and they'll rob it out, that works as well, but if it's really light, if that hive is starving, I would, on a warm day above 50, we're gonna have some above 50 days again. I would pull these two outside frames, or these two outside frames are empty already. You can pull those out real quick and you can do all this within a matter of just a couple of minutes on the top. You're just pulling this inner cover, expose those two frames, and if they're empty, you pull those out, drop in a couple of frames of honey, button it back up, and then they have it ready to go. They don't have to rob it. They don't have to try to bring it in and reprocess it. It's right there ready for them to utilize if you have extra frames, honey. Make sure they're warm though. If you got them in the refrigerator or freezer, warm them up first before you put them in the position. You gotta remember, you're dropping that ice in there, you're not doing them any favors. Okay. Good question. Anybody else on feeding? You can spend a little bit of time here because this is important, real important. These warm days it's dangerous for a beekeeper. Y'all understand how to, you don't have to open it up to see how heavy that hive is. You lift it up and man, this is kind of light. Well, then intervene.
So you know how when you do that sugar board on top and do the whole one, and usually that's set for a couple of days to harden up.
There's all kinds of recipes online on how to make sugar boards. And so, a lot of them very similar.
Yeah, just wondering though, the first time I did that, I had 3 hives and a couple of them hardly touched it in the season, but it was colder last year.
Yeah.
And
So if they don't need it, they won't get it. And a sugar board is hard for them. You gotta remember, the raw sugar or sugar board, not only do they have to consume the sugar, but they've got to emulsify it and then regurgitate it and put it in the comb and then start dehydrating it, so it's a process for them from where that raw sugar and to become feed for the colony. See, that's emulsified when it's 2-to-1, it's already emulsified. They have to emulsify raw sugar to actually because how they do that is when they process that, when they pull that honey out of the cell, basically it goes into their honey crop, and then they regurgitate that and feed the colony. See that there's only a few bees that do that. The whole colony doesn't do that. There's a few bees that are assigned to feed. Some are assigned to heat, and they actually literally their wing muscles, they're able to detach those muscles from the wings and vibrate through their head. And through their head, heat the whole core. So some of them, that's all they're doing, and so these other bees are coming and feeding them while they're heating. And some are, assigned to all different duties. Still, the nurse bees, the younger ones, if they have any larvae, they're still feeding and warming the larvae. Some are feeding, attending the queen. So those bees that are assigned to feed, that's what they're doing. And so if that's a difficult process, but it's better than nothing, what I'm saying. So you have loss, but it's better than nothing.
I just want to know. I have mine, of course, consistent across the top, and looks like there's a lot of heat on that one, which is there.
Yeah, well, basically the lid's off, so the lid's gonna hold the heat in.
So you can have chunks thrown in there.
Yeah, and that's, I would not put them right on the frames like that. I would put some wax paper down underneath. I just picked this photo up to show you. This is the best case scenario. You have your inner cover. If you don't have a quilt board, you have an inner cover, and you can put sugar in and around here, or fondant, and then the lid goes over that. So if you're not losing any heat at all there. Here, you're right, there is some heat loss.
If you go online and you want to buy that shim, it's like a 2 or 3 inch shim. It's called an Emiri shim. It was first invented by Dr. Emiri. That's what that ring is called.
Or if you're good with the, yeah.
Yeah, take a large box and chop it in about 4 pieces.
I just have a comment. I'm not sure it's been made yet. It's okay to overfeed.
Yeah.
If you're not hurting the bees in any way.
No, you're gonna know, if they don't need it, they won't take it.
Fondant is better than sugar on bees, easier.
In my opinion, yeah, because it's closer to the actual consistency of what they need. Raw sugar is probably the worst for them to have to process it. And the reason why we don't do 2 to 1 in the winter is just because of the cold factor, and they have to dehydrate that extra water. So it's, they're working quite a bit, using a lot of energy, producing carbohydrates for energy. So it's a trade-off. And that's why I say if it's warmed up, it blows a lot better for them.
So would you do outside of the hive?
Yeah.
During the day?
Yes.
but
Oh,
then
yeah.
put
Yeah, you can do both. Yeah, you can do
that
both.
way, even
Again, you can go online and do the sugar cakes, and then along the lines of fondant, fondant is tricky. And first time that you do it, you'll say, oh, I don't know if I love my bees that much or not. But again, there's these products that you can buy, so it's all commercially available. But getting them here in timely fashion, that's the other thing.
That's what I'm saying. The easiest thing to do, you usually have an extra box sitting around. Just put a box on top of the inner cover and buy a 5-pound bag of sugar. That'll do 2 hives, and just sprinkle it around the outside, not down through the hole, but around the outside. And then you don't have to buy any special equipment. You don't have to make anything. It's just there. And if they need it, they'll use it. If they don't use it and you end up in the spring having to toss it off in the grass, you spent $4 on 2 hives. It's not a big, not a big deal.
Yeah, you just saved $200 for saving the hive. So
If they were hungry, yeah.
in the start. Good. Okay, myth 2, you should check your hive frequently in the winter. No. Every time you crack the lid, especially if it's cold, you're losing heat, and losing heat, that equals carbohydrate loses energy and sets them back. So if you have to check them, make sure you're in the plus 50s in the middle of the day. They're already flying. For whatever reason, you're gonna be cracking that lid. It might be to look down in there and see if you got a couple of frames of honey you wanna drop down in there, then go quick. Methodical, not too quick where you're smashing bees, methodical. But don't leave it open.
And if you're gonna check them on one of those days, you wanna wait for it to get warm enough. But you wanna hit that very early part when it's warm enough.
Yeah.
Because the more you get it closed back up while it's still warm, they can get it heated up in there better. If you do it right before sundown, well then
Yeah.
they're already behind, they have a hard time making it up.
You lost the radiant factor from the sun. But you shouldn't be, I mean, we're talking like, 2 to 3 minutes is all you're doing. And got that lid cracked. And so it's something that, no, you don't check them in the winter time. And that's the main reason, right? Myth 3, bees are dormant during winter. Their metabolism does slow down, but they do not go into a dormant state. They are still active. In fact, I would say you're strong, especially this year. Majority of your hives we're in that 50,000 plus, or even 30,000. If you have 30,000, which is a box of bees, they still have a frame of brood that they're raising. Promise you. Especially if you got Saskatraz, which most of you do. They always have a frame of brood that's rolling in the middle in 50-degree weather. And so they are still actively doing all that they do. And especially in the valley. How many of you, your hives are in partial or full sun? Yours especially. And those are the ones that are breaking cluster, and that's part of the reason why they're flying, because they got mouths to feed. So they are never dormant. Don't take that. And you can tell this is the bottom or the top half of the cluster, bottom half of the cluster, and that, they pull them apart, but this is even in the cluster. That basically what they look like. Myth 4, if you don't see dead bees, the colony is healthy. It's sideways. Sorry about that. Picture sideways. I don't know why I did that, but these bees out front, there's always going to be a few bees out. There's the door, bees out front on the ground. There's always going to be a few bees. Bees are dying of old age throughout, and basically they're still doing house cleaning chores, and they're taking the bees out the door and they're tossing them out. And sometimes a bee, she knows that she's at the end of her life, and so the last thing that she'll do for the hive is not die in the hive, but leave the hive, just to save the work that another bee would have to do. So there's always going to be a few. Don't take that. Now, if you have a big old pile of bees, and that's an alarm. Yeah. So look in the entrance, and if you see the entrance is just plugged, I don't see a lot of bees coming in and out. There's not a lot of activity. Look down into that entrance, get a flashlight or whatever, look in the entrance and make sure the entrance isn't plugged with dead bees. If it is, just straighten out a coat hanger, put a hook on it, stick the hook in there, and you can drag out the bottom board that way. You don't even have to open it up and clear that entrance. Because oftentimes that's what happens, is there's just a bunch of dead bees stuck in the entrance. And they do need that entrance cleared for ventilation. And for to keep the moisture regulated as well. So most of you have the small entrance going on right now in the winter time, which is okay, unless there's a lot of moisture. Lonnie's not here. He was telling me he had one hive, a really strong hive up in Colburn, that really a moisture problem. Said it just dripping with moisture. And I said, well, you need to open up the bottom. And he said, well, I cracked the top, I cracked the lid, and because I changed out he had some shavings, some chips in the top to just keep the moisture down. He said that they're just soaking and soft, wet, and really, because it's a strong hive, and he's up at altitude. And so there's just really cold and then warms up. And so there's big heat swings. So I open up the entrance. Your entrance, probably open that up to that 3-inch entrance. They need to vent. They got to be able to vent. And he was on that really narrow 1 inch and a huge hive. So I said, another thing is you're going to have to feed that monster. Okay. Yep,
Which-
I wouldn't leave the top open. You left the top, I said, don't leave the top open. Close the top, but leave the bottom. I just, for the rest of the time. They need that air. So that was the problem. There was not enough ventilation. It was the rest of the year. Now, a strong hive, you won't have any problem with mice. And if you want to do something on top of that, what you can do is get some wire mesh. That quarter by quarter wire mesh, the hardware cloth, and shove that in the entrance, and that bees can get through, but mice and critters can't get in. So there's a lot of times, that's why we close that down, but that's only if you have ventilation issues, like you open up the lid and it's just nothing but wet water. Just, it's soaking. And so that's a ventilation issue. And so that means the bees are producing the heat when it's cold. And therefore you got condensation that's just raining on them. So they can regulate that if they have an ability to do that, which requires an opening. To be, because they will direct the air. They can actually direct the airflow in a hive. In and out, depending on what they need to do.
The other thing is, if you're going from the little one to the big one, you're thinking maybe I'm getting too much cold air. Well, if it's that strong of a hive, that's not gonna hurt it, that extra cold.
But that's, so if you're noticing a little extra moisture and you got a lot of bees in that hive, that's it. Yeah, you always want, and if you're already tilted it, then it's running out the front. Myth 6, adding extra honeycomb helps with heat retention. If you're dropping blanks in there, you are losing heat because the bees won't even attach themselves to that. There's nothing for them to do in the wintertime on a blank frame. If you have a box of blank frames, they won't cluster on that. All that is loss of heat. They have to heat that space that is unusable. So I've had people tell me, well, I figured they need the extra room, so I just dropped in an extra box. I said, how many boxes do you have? Well, I have 4 boxes on, no, 2, only 2, And so we that's why I reiterate things over and over again, because, we say it and at that time you hear it, but we don't always remember. That's me. I don't always remember. So I always, okay, myth 7, bees are self-sufficient. Here we have a dead colony. They were left, this one starved to death, and it had a queen. I think queen's right in here. If during the winter time, if they're not, if they don't have enough food, if there's a number of things that can go wrong, and so they are not self-sufficient. You still have to be a beekeeper in the winter. How many of you have successfully overwintered at least 2 winters? 2 winters. Okay. There you go. I mean, that doesn't mean you buy a box of bees every year. So that, and most of your books, your beekeeping books, they say a successful beekeeper is one that is able to overwinter. University of Montana, we had this discussion with one of my professors and about overwintering, and overwintering Montana is a little bit more of a trick than it is in other locations. But to successfully overwinter, then you're doing something right. So those of you that overwinter, especially that second year you come through, that means you've requeened and overwintered. And I say that you have traveled along the journey quite a ways. Yay. Okay. And then a couple other, I'll throw in there, scientificbeekeeping.com is a good place to get some more information on a number of different things, and throw that in there. Are you prepared? Yes, we're prepared. Okay. Now, Tracy's going to come talk to you a little bit about when we're getting prepared for spring and the splits.
Okay. Who here has a plan for what they're going to do next year with their bees? Oh, they're all set. Good. You need to have a plan. Right now, I have 3 hives. I want to go to 5 hives. I have 2 hives I want to go to 5 hives. I have 30 hives and I want to go to 5 hives. Make a plan. You have to know where you're going, okay? What I'm going to talk to you a little bit about is how to get there. The reason why I'm saying it now, we're going to talk a little bit about some splits and stuff. You don't normally talk about splits in January, but you have to be ready for those splits. That's why I'm going over it now, so you can buy whatever woodware you need. You can have everything you need, so when it comes time to split or to do some of these things I'm going to show you, you have it. It's not like, oh no, I need another box. Not going to work. When bees need something, they need it today, not 2 weeks from now when it comes in from Man Lake. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is whatever equipment you have that you're not using, you need to go through. Find the mice, scrape off the burr comb, take all the dead bees out, whatever. Get this box ready to put on colony next year. This is the time of year to do it, right now. Bottom boards. Do they need painted? Do you need to paint boxes or are you going to dip them? Have it planned what you're going to do so that in March when it gets warm, you're set to go. Okay. Now, in that plan, like I was talking about, oh, here's another big thing. That seems like it needs to be said. You wouldn't think it needs to be said, but wash your suit. Wash your suit. I know you don't wear it, but you know, once every couple of weeks or whatever through the summer, but wash your suit. Bottom boards, anything you need, sand it, paint it, put a screw in it if it's loose and get it tight, get it ready to go. Now,
Tracy, just curious, when you say wash your soap, can you just do it in the washing machine?
you can do it on your, most of them follow the directions on the tag, but most of them you can do the suit part in the washer on gentle. The hood you have to take off and you have to do that separately, but yeah.
Is there a great way to get some of the wax off in the dark stain?
Pressure washer. Well, I'm serious. Especially when I can start smelling the guys more than I see them, and we're going to tonight after work, we're going to the fresh. The car wash
them and then
car wash, and we pressure wash right on the statement.
I thought you just leave it on, Jared.
I usually spray it down good with stain remover, let it sit 15-20 minutes, wash it. But it takes 3 or 4 times before it's
That propolis. And if you use hot water, then that propolis is gonna come off inside of your wash machine, so the next couple of loads that you do are.
I usually scrub mine, if it's really dirty, I scrub it off first, I lay it out on the concrete, wet it. Dawn dishwasher, scrub it good, if it's really dirty before I put it in the wash machine. And it usually does take 2 or 3 times to get it clean enough. It's stained, but it's clean. Okay.
Ice. Or.
With ice, yeah, then all that propolis just breaks off, yeah. That'll work.
Maybe put it with a few old garage towels, probably.
Do
Not
that.
greasy ones. but
Yeah,
Just so it has something to wash with.
something else to wash with, you do that. You could do that. Anyway, okay, so you decided that you have 3 hives. And that's all you want for the year. I don't want to go up in hives. 3 is all the work I need to do. But come April, March, one of those hives is going to pop queen cells and want to swarm. You don't want swarms either. This is how you take care of that, okay? I get in one of my hives and there's queen cells. Okay? I don't want any more hives. So what do? Stick with me here for just a minute. You take one box and you put it on a different bottom board. Okay? In this box, you want the queen, the existing queen from this hive. You want to make sure she's in this box that you take off of here. Okay? You want to move most of the brood to this box. So this box is going to be, you're kind of like doing a split, but it's heavy. It's a real heavy split. So you want most, especially your closed brood over here and your queen. Okay? And this one, you're going to have your open brood, and all of the queen cells. If you have too many queen cells, if you've got 20 queen cells, we can talk about what to do with those. That's a whole different flash. You can give them to friends, you can make queens, whatever. But in this box, if you're just trying to not go up in hives, you want to take the 3 best queen cells, the 3 that really look nice and big, and you want those in here with, we want to make sure the bees are about equal as far as the amount of live adult bees, okay? This one right here is not going to be laying any brood, so a lot of times for a month, okay? But your other queen's over here. So this hive's going to make a queen, but it's going to be getting weaker every day because bees die every day. This hive has your old queen and it's going to be blowing up. Now right here for about 3 weeks to a month, you're going to have 2 hives. So you're going to have more than 3. But as soon as this queen gets up and running, she's starting to lay just sheets of eggs. And you know that she did well. And she requeened and got mated really well. Go in this box and you find the queen and you do away with her. Then you wait a month, or a month. You wait a day, and then you put them back together. Now I still only have 3 hives, but I requeened this hive also. So this hive's got a nice new queen. The advantage to this is if you have queen cells in here and you kill the queen, this hive doesn't get any bigger for up to a month. Said because there's no brood being laid. So it gets weaker and weaker and weaker until that queen starts laying, and then 21 days after that, you start having emerging bees. So you're making it weaker and weaker, right, going into the honey flow. Okay, if you don't want to make a split, if you don't want more hives, if you do it this way, when you combine this back together, you're going to have a monster hive. Because remember, for I don't know, 3 days, maybe a week, you're going to have queens laying in both of these hives before you put them back together. So you're going to have a nice, strong hive, putting them back together. As far as splits and stuff, I'm not even going to go over that today as far as, doing a nuke or a split or whatever. But the reason why I wanted to show you guys this now, if you don't want any more hives, and a lot of people don't want any more hives, is because you may think, well, I don't want any more hives, so I don't need any woodware. You do need a bottom board. You need some extra frames, maybe a box, and an inner and outer cover. So you still need another set of woodware to do this. But this way you're requeening pretty much every year. You got good fresh queens, and you got monster hives that are going to produce a lot of honey, and you don't have to buy queens. Okay, but you got to have that little bit extra woodware.
You have a problem with them being accepted? You have these 2 queens with different pheromones, then you just stack them back up together. Are they gonna accept?
I'll tell you, I've never had a problem with that. You just want to make sure the new queen is in the bottom box. You don't want to put the new queen on top. The new queen's over here, and you've killed this one. Some people will put one sheet of newspaper over here, put a couple cuts in it, and then that way the queen pheromone from here filters up into this box slowly, and by the time the bees get it cleaned out, they think it's their queen. Usually if I have to requeen with a nuke, I don't even do that. I put the 5 frames right in the bottom and just stack the rest of it back on top and let it go. Because that queen is in the middle of her bees, and there's usually not a problem. I personally don't have to do that. Some people even take sugar water and spray them down. You can do all that. I have never had a problem, especially with this, because remember, they're related, because the queen that you now have is a daughter of your old queen. So the pheromones are going to be similar. They're not going to be the same, but they're going to be similar. So I've never had a problem with that doing this way. Never had a problem with them not accepting another queen. If you want to put the newspaper in there just as to hedge your bets, that would be fine. I don't think it would hurt a thing. Any questions on it? Who's on first? Which box has got the queen in it?
Old one or new?
The old one's on the ground, I stepped on. The other thing, when you're doing this, if it's springtime, I'll just go over one other thing real quick. Ask if anybody needs a queen. This queen that you're replacing might be just a great queen. But you have these queen cells, so you're doing this and you have a good queen. Don't throw her out and stomp on her. Put a message out, hey, does anybody need a queen? You can always put her in a cage and give her to somebody. The same way if you have 20 queen cells in this box, because it was swarm cells. You pick your nicest 3, you can always take the other frames with queen cells and trade them with your fellow beekeepers. So that if they want to requeen their hive, they pinch their queen and drop that frame right down the middle and wait for that queen to hatch in there. And now he gets, the other person gets requeened free too. So there's other things you can do with the queen cells and with the old queen, but I'm not going to go into it any farther than that, but you guys get the idea. You don't have to kill off everything but the 3 queen cells, but it gives you options. If you have other hives that you want to requeen, you can do the same thing. Kill the queen and put some of the queen cells over there, especially if this is a nice strong hive and it's got good genetics. Okay.
So it's my first for the winter, I don't want to look at doing this, so probably.
You have bees now that you're overwintering? Okay, as long as they come through the winter fine and they're strong, yeah, you can do this coming year.
Yeah, he's talking about this is in April.
Yeah, you do this whenever swarm season comes. But the reason why I'm telling you now is because you have to have that extra wood weight.
Yeah, this is, you're planning for what you're gonna do with your apiary. If you want to increase your apiary this year, let's say you got 3 and you want to go to 6. Then now's the time to buy woodenware and get it ready. And you wait till the springtime, all the big box stores are gonna be sold out. And you're gonna be on a waiting list. Right now is the time to buy any woodenware.
Right.
And get, what all Tracy is saying is that this is a good time to get prepared for what your plan is this year. What is your plan? You don't want to go any, he was saying you don't want to get any bigger. Well, that's a good way to make a powerhouse honey producing hive.
With a brand new queen.
So you did, it's a temporary split.
Yes,
And
it's like a temper, yeah.
And then you're recombining.
And the other reason why I wanted to do it now to let you guys know is people say, oh, well, I don't want any more hives, so I don't need to buy any more woodware. If you're gonna do this, you do have to get that woodware now, like it's talking about. If you're gonna split, if you're gonna grow, we're gonna have road shows to show you how to do that, and that's a separate thing. But this is for people who don't want to have any more hives, say, I don't need any more woodware. Well, think about that in your plan. I don't want to get any bigger. You still need to have one extra set of woodware.
And also another good thing to think about is even though you weren't going to increase your apiary, you might want to think about doing some replacement nooks. In other words, to build a couple of smaller nooks. That way, if one of your hives does fail, you have something to replace it. You don't have to purchase or try to find some bees on from someone else. You have a replacement nook that you're putting together. So a lot of guys they figure, well, they're going to lose 20%, so they will produce at least 20% replacement nooks for their operation wherever you're at. That's a given. You're going to lose 20%. So, but if you just have 2 hives, you say, well, I won't lose 20% of one hive. But you know what I'm saying? If you're only wanting to do 2, then think about maybe doing just a nook and using that same mentality. However, you're going to need the equipment. So whatever you decide to do, think about, and that's just a plan for this year. That's all.
Yep. So just make your plan. If you don't already have it, make your plan right now so you can get your woodware bought, put together, painted, dipped, whatever, for whatever your plan is.
Right now also is the big bee convention in Kentucky. So almost every one of the supply houses bought some serious discounts on their wooden.
And remember, if you do paint, you need to let it sit at least about a month for the latex to paint to dry before you do it?
If there's anything on the inside, yeah,
Yeah.
it's inside the bottom or inside the lid, so.
I just painted some, right before it got cold. And I actually read the directions, which was a new thing. I'd never read the directions. And it said 2 weeks was full cure time on the latex paint. It dries in 24 hours, it's good to go, but 24 hours, it's still off, for 2 weeks, it's still off gassing. Is what he's talking about.
Temperature.
Yeah.
Depending on temperature, right? It's always dependent on temperature. Always. I know we stuck down there, we stuck. That's over.
Okay, developing an IPM, integrated pest management system. It also includes pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, as well as Varroa. And if we are fortunate enough to still be beekeeping here in about 5-6 years, we'll also have a little critter called Tropolaelaps. And we won't even talk about the trophy mite. Or will we? Okay, so this is kind of the pyramid of an IPM, integrated pest management system. Each of you, I know that a lot of you, you get a lot of information, you get information here, you get information online on what you need to be doing. Here's some of the information that you receive. It'd be great information if you lived where they did. If you lived in Florida, then that's what you need to be doing in Florida. But our beekeeping here is totally different than Georgia or Canada or even California. There's some similarities, but our beekeeping, Western Colorado, is different from the East Slope as well. And so the reason why we give you very specific information here is because this is what we know works here on the West Slope. And so your IPM, when you're gathering information, know how to do a pest management system on your own life schedule. Understand that not everything on the internet can be true. Anyway, some of the other stuff is absolutely true, I think. Maybe, probably not. So as you see, this is an intervention at the top. That's when you need to intervene, and then your prevention is down below. This is increasing bee stress as you get higher. This is increasing beekeeping labor. And so this identification, understanding the pest, cultural control, sanitation, physical, mechanical, manipulations, biological, and then chemical treatment. So that gives you kind of the pyramid of those of you that are interested in information that might not use. And mites is the big problem, right? This is the pest. And we're going to talk about why it's the pest. Treating the symptoms instead of combating the disease is just managing the problem. Symptomatic treatment without addressing the root cause can only lead to catastrophic failure. Just nod your head yes. Thank you. So therefore, you need to develop on your own. This is something, and I know that you rely upon the information of a lot of beekeepers here. We have a couple of master beekeepers and people have been beekeeping for decades, but you really need to understand the importance for you to develop your own integrated pest management system. Are you ready? And it starts with, if you're gonna be stupid, you better be tough. Okay. You don't get that. That's right on. So plan your year and then stick to the plan. Here's one of the calendars. It's been a while when we use it. So across the top is our dates, and then this is different events that we use and different places that we treat. And so you can develop your calendar according to what is going on, not just with you, but your bees. The bees here in Western Colorado have some very specific dates that take place and things that, when the first pollen shows up, who knows where the first pollen, what is the first thing to throw pollen in the Grand Valley? Anybody know? No. Yeah. So that is, and it's exciting as you're sitting under a willow tree and it sounds like it's alive. And bees are gathering up pollen. And it throws a little bit of nectar, but that's one of the first pollen sources that is active in the Grand Valley. And so that is, and then of course, so the first nectar, so and the bees are coming alive and that's ramping up. So according to that schedule, where does my pest management come into play according to my calendar? And who dictates the calendar? Not you, your bees. Your bees dictate your calendar because they're at the mercy of the weather and or the horticulture in our area. And so because of that, they are the ones that are telling you what you need to do when. So this might be the first year that you're thinking about really paying attention to the calendar. And then on the calendar, according to what's going on in your hive, you need to develop when to treat, how to treat, what to treat. And so there's a lot of questions that you begin to answer. First of all, part of the understanding the calendar is the bee calendar, the biological bee calendar, and that is understanding the importance of life cycle of the honeybee. And how many days from egg to hatch on a worker? 21. Thank you. Well, these two guys know. How about a queen?
16.
Yes, and a drone is 28. Yeah, but we're,
That's
Then you're just 24.
yeah. Okay. Good. Life cycle is very important of knowing also how I'm going to treat and when to treat. But there's another life cycle of a critter that you might not have really been paying attention to. But first of all, this is the calendar year. Okay, the calendar year. This is off of Randy Oliver's Scientific Beekeeping webpage. In this graph, you can download this graph, enter in your own criteria, especially when it comes to weather and times of the year, and it will manipulate and give you a pretty good idea of the height. See, the height of there in I think this was originally out of in Manitoba, so their height of their colony strength is in August, the beginning of August, and then it dies down. So you depends on the location. You can type in all that information and it'll give you basically this is the colony strength and also the mite strength. This is why this was developed to give you a pretty good idea how the mites are going to be producing throughout the year, and then the strength of the colony in regards to also the mite load. This is the one that you really need to know. A lot of people do not have a clue when it comes to the reproductive cycle of the varroa mite and the importance. So one mite goes in not at egg, but right before the capping starts, which is what day? When does that cell get capped? No. Day 8 and day 9, right in there. So they go in day 8, day 9's capped. And so the cycle of the mite is half of the cycle of the bee. They're reproducing in 12 days, not 21, in 12 days. One goes in, 5 come out. The first one is a male. The first egg that hatches is the male. He fertilizes the other eggs and the other. So one goes in, 5 come out in 12 days. In 12 days, not 21 days. So it's twice as fast as you thought when you're thinking 21 days and they're going to have in 21 days and it's going to be the whole cycle. No, they're finding any of that larvae that's ready to be capped, and here they go. So let's do a little bit of math. Let's say you had four mites per 300. So that's at the threshold. Half a cup of bees. You did alcohol or the Dawn dish soap, and you come up with 4 mites in 300. So just those in 300. So that's 4. How many bees in a colony this time of year? What's the end of the year? Let's say round number 10,000. So how many mites do you have? If it's 4 per 300? Who's good at math? I'm not gonna give you the answer. You gotta figure this out. 4 mites in 300. Grab your phone, your calculators.
10,000.
And there's 10,000 bees. So first thing you take, 10,000 divided by 300 is what?
And 133 months.
103,000.
Okay, so 133 mites. That's what you started with, and that's not too bad, but that's barely manageable. But in 12 days, times 5. Actually, times 1, 2, 3, so times 5. 133 times 5 is
650 something.
so in a month, you went from 100 in 1 month, because that's, times 2.5 there, times 2.5. We went from just 100 to a couple thousand mites. And the colony is gonna start collapsing with no treatment. That's how fast the cycle takes place. That's how quickly the mites reproducing in your colony. How many eggs does a queen lay in a day? Tyler gave us this in our veterans. How many eggs? Approximately 2,000, 2,000 to 3,000, depends on who you're talking to, a frame. So you got 2,000, 3,000 eggs. And so that is all that ready for what? Ready for mite production. So I said all that to say this: if you don't have an IPM, you're the hive is the one that absconds and ends up in one of mine. Because I was doing really good, man. I had my mites under control. It happens every year. Every year, my mites are in the end of August, man. I'm really feeling good because my mites are down there 1s and 2s, and some of them are throwing 0s. I go back in a week and they're 10s and 15s. And what happened is somebody did not treat. Somebody had a mite bomb and they absconded. What happened with absconding is not a swarm. Absconding is they leave their colonies and then beg their way into separate colonies. So one hive, as it absconds, those bees take those mites and they find somebody else's hive. Ooh, this is a really nice place to live. There's no mites here. Whoa. It happens every year. And so that's why there's a lot of people, well, I don't know what happened. I had, and you've heard this, Trace heard this. I don't know what happened. And it was just last week. I opened the lid and there was a boiling out, and there's like thousands and thousands of bees, and this week they're all gone. What happened? They tell them those mite load. No, I didn't see any mites. I didn't see any mites. Okay, you understand how you have to find, this is some of the equipment that you can use. You get this clear plastic jug, you can shake the frame in there, and then you take the scoop and put them in. Alcohol, there's a half a cup, and you shake them, and down at the bottom you count the mites, and there's different things you can use it. So the what, the where, and the when, and how mite treatment. First of all, the location. This is why you didn't see the mites. This is why, because the preferred location of the mite is under the bottom in the sternites. So the targets are on top, sternites on the bottom, and it's usually between the second and third sternite is where the mites love to burrow in, and they will burrow in under that lip there, that flap, and you'll only see half of that mite sticking out. So you're not going to see, if you see the mites, it's a problem. They ran out of room underneath the bees, and so they're on top of the bees, and that's it's no longer. So this is the bottom of the bee. You can see this is how they're attached. So you're not going to see that at all. It's very difficult to find a mite that is already dug into the sternite. Following me?
They're hard enough to see on the bottom of the mites then, because they're so small,
Yeah.
let alone up under a bee, and all the bees their top is up, so you don't see underneath them.
Okay, so if that whole thing, you think you're gonna see them, well, I'm looking for them, I look really hard, you're not going to. So in the world of miticides, we're gonna talk a little bit about that. So there's synthetic miticide. Fluvonaate, we started there in the late 80s, early 90s, and that was the magic bullet, man. That worked beautifully. that knocked down the mites, it penetrated the cappings. That fluvoronate was the, man, that was the answer. We thought, man, we're good to go. And it worked until it didn't. And then Coumaphos came along. Coumaphos, same thing. Coumaphos, not as good as the fluvoronate, but the Coumaphos was just, it was good. And then it didn't work no more. And now Amitraz, and Amitraz is doing the same thing. What happens is the mite develops a resistance to these synthetic miticides. So they no longer work. In fact, well, the fluvoronate now is being used in Australia with great success because the same thing, their mites over there, wherever they were so far removed, so many generations removed from when we were using this. Because Australia, how many know Australia was last year or the year before, 2 years now, that they didn't have varroa until just a couple of years ago. And there was the last continent that did not have varroa, but now varroa is on every continent and every area in the world. So again, I steer clear. When Amitraz started to fail here about 5 years ago, we decided we got to get away from synthetic miticides. We got to find something that is, plus here, the problem with these is it also builds up the residuals in the comb. So what was used to combat the issue now became part of the issue. So the organic miticides, and many of you are familiar with oxalic acid and the different forms of oxalic acid. There's the dribble, the vaporization, and then the extended with the Swedish sponges. Formic acid, it does penetrate the cappings. It works great, but it is temperature. You gotta make sure that you're not over 80 degrees. In fact, 80 degrees, you'd also lose a queen. It's very hard on queens. We try to use formic at times in early spring, and when it's not too, and we know we got new queens coming anyway, so that is a good way to mix it up. Thymol also is fairly effective, especially fall. A lot of beekeepers use thymol, and then some kind of the hop beta acid. Any questions on organic miticides or anything anybody want to add there?
So the organic they're not gonna get used to, that's the whole idea is going to organic?
Because
The mice are not gonna get used to it, or?
no, the mites have not, as far as we know, there is no mite resistance to any of those organic miticides. And their mites have not built up a resistance to any of those, but in fact, now again, oxalic acid extended sponges, I mentioned this, the veterans group, it doesn't work in some areas of the country. In fact, you go online and University of Georgia did a study on the oxalic acid extended sponges, and their efficacy was around 50%. It was really low. And it's because of the humidity. The humidity interacts, and I believe the efficacy drops with high humidity. That's something we don't have here.
It actually worked better here because.
Yes, because of that. And you'll notice that, and again, they're good for about 80 days, 75, 80 days. Some would say 90 days, but when the efficacy really tails off after that 70. So if you're going to be using oxalic acid sponges as extended release, it's not a quick hit. You got a really high mite count. It doesn't bring them down real quick, but it's over time is what that one. Formic acid is a quick hit. It'll knock your mites down. Thymol, same thing. Quick hit. If you got really hot, but again, formic acid is really temperamental when it comes to high temperatures. You'll know you probably end up having to requeen because it has to do with how it interferes with the queen mandibular pheromone, I believe.
Has anybody ever smelled that stuff, that formic acid? It's like ammonia. It smells like ammonia.
So they readily think there is something wrong with the queen and the ball killer.
They can't, the bees can't smell anything. And they come across a queen, they don't recognize it as their queen because they can't smell her. And so they ball her.
So some people say, well, formic acid, I'll find the queen, I'll cage her, I'll remove it from the hive altogether, use the formic acid, and then after 2 days, introduce the queen. So, and that is something that is, very doable for a backyard beekeeper. Thymol is also very easy to use. It's again, you can overdo thymol and have the same problem. But anyway, there's organic miticides. And so again, your IPM, decide what you would need to do, and maybe you don't know. I'll try all these, just not at once. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about part of my IPM. It's not just the mites. Of course, the mites is a huge problem, but it'll also deal with, part of my IPM is dealing with bacterial and fungal diseases. And start with bacterial and fungal before we go to the viral. We didn't even know that this was going on here, a beehive. Okay, so this is a good slide of things that aren't going right. See how the discolored, all these discolored larvae? That is American foul brood. And it is a bacteria. And the only way to really deal with this, there are some people that have claimed that they can cure that, but basically you just got to burn the hive. The woodenware, those spores embed themselves in the woodenware and they last for decades.
Where does that come from?
It's just a bacterial that
It's in nature.
it's in, and we haven't had it in the Grand Valley. Talked to an old beekeeper out of Loma, and he said there was some back in the, like he said, the last time he heard of it was in the 80s, 1980s. So we really haven't had that, and that's good. So American foul brood, that you can see it's ropey. It's got, this is a rope test, and so what you can tell you, and it smells. It's a smell like anything unlike you've ever. It's rotten. It's a rotten, putrid smell. Yeah. And then there's chalk brood. So this is a little bit more common. Basically, this cleans up with a new queen. You can get rid of the chalk brood, and they look like little mummies. And that's what happens is these larvae are mummified, and normally you'll not see them in the comb, but you'll see them out the front door. They'll take them out, and it is, again, this is something that can be cleared up with new queen.
And they are as hard as chalk. When you
Yeah.
pick it up, you can't break it. I mean, you have to hit it with a hammer to break it. It's hard.
So, and again, it's easy to take care of this one with a new queen. Sac brood. Sac brood's a little bit different. It's again, it's a bacterial issue, and that is cleared up with making sure you keep your comb cleaned up. So that if you are making your comb is being renewed and you're cycling your comb, I would say 5 years. Don't have any comb older than 5 years. You're not gonna run into something like that. Okay, so the varroa mites and the viral diseases. Here's a dog that has a mite problem. And if your neighbor had a dog like this, would you call animal control and say, hey, my neighbor's got a dog that's just miserable and needs some help? So then those that are treatment-free beekeeping, they're just letting their bees suffer because of the mites. It's the same thing. So understand that I have this conversation with treatment-free beekeepers say, I don't want bees that I have to treat for mites. That is the answer, is the bees, we develop genetics where they are able to deal with the mites on their own. And that's coming because all the major beekeepers are now understanding that and it all comes down to money. when there is a demand for hygienic bees, the hygienic breeds, and that's being elevated, even though they are charging more for the hygienic bees or to, especially out of the big boys out of California and Hawaii. The two largest ones are in Hawaii, and then there's a couple big ones and we're talking about they do $300 million a year in sales. So they're huge, the queen breeders. And now they are all, because, you know, they are all understanding that this is the direction we need to go, get rid of mycelial hygienic bees, and they're breeding for it now. So hopefully within another 5-6 years, now the only thing we'll be talking about is triple laps. So mite load equals virus load. If you have a high mite load, you have a high virus load. That makes sense? Now, why is that? Well, here's the viruses that we deal with here in the Grand Valley. All 5 of these have found the black queen cell. I haven't seen that for a while. Deformed wings, seen that a lot. Lake Sinai is not so much. Acute bee paralysis, yes. Kashmir, no. Israeli acute, yes. Chronic bee paralysis, yes. So 4 of those that are here. They're prevalent, and the one that you see the most is the deformed wing virus. And that looks like, that's that right there. He hatches and the wings are deformed. So there's that bee that's the virus, and that's what it looks like. Who's seen that in your, okay, so that is basically a high virus load. When the virus load gets to a certain point that the bees are not able to deal with it, and it comes down to this, the vector. The mite is not necessarily the problem, it's the vector. It's injecting because it's feeding off the fat body of the nurse bees. That mite is injecting those viruses directly into then the fat body is not like you're thinking fat body. It's the internal organs. That's what the fat bodies are. The internal organs of the bee is what they're feeding on, and so they're injecting those viruses literally into the bee, and that's why if there is a mite load, there's a virus load. Chronic bee paralysis, the shiny black bees, and sometimes they just look really shiny, and sometimes you don't even see the yellow because the yellow is the hair. How many have seen this? The little shiny black bee? That is bee paralysis. That's one of the bee paralysis, one of the 3 bee paralysis viruses. So, and that's, so we talk about gut health. This is how to help your bees. Part of my IPM is not just recognizing there is a mite load, but how to help them along by keeping my mite load under control, but then helping the bees with gut health and that microbiome. So a couple of things on the market recently, Super DFM, game changer. Now they even have a derivative of the Super DFM that helps with pesticide exposure. So if your bees have been exposed to pesticides, then there is a Super DFM that is including helping the bees with that, get over that hurdle. Mellifera Boost has been around for a while. That is also helps with gut health. And we trade off. Cannot do these both at the same time, but like we just got done hitting everything with Mellifera Boost. In the springtime, we'll hit it with Super DFM as well as Complete. Complete is an additive to the feed, or you can spray it on actually the top bars, and it helps with nosema as well as a number of trace elements, and it helps complete. That's why they call it complete the nutritional value that is not found because of all the GMO products, all the GMO agriculture that's going on. They have really scientifically developed all the nutrition out of our food. If you didn't know that, and it's affecting the bees. So they give supplements. Just like how many take supplements because say this is just a supplement for the bees. Take your vitamin C here, girl. Okay, feeding, different ways of feeding, and we talked about open feeding. So there's one way to open feed. You got like a chicken feeder type of thing. Just make sure you put some marbles or some straw down there at the bottom so they don't drown. Frame feeder that goes inside. This is the entrance feeder. That's a bucket feeder on the top, so there's different ways to feed. Going comb, this is something that we really started pushing hard this last couple of years, myself and our outfit, is getting rid of old comb. Old comb, and the reason being is because of the residual that builds up in your comb over time. Some people say, well, you know, you're commercial, that you're migratory, that you're all over the world, and so it's gonna be a problem for you because you're in California, and I've got sprayed more, I would say 90% of the time when I get hit with sprays, it's here in the Grand Valley, by far. I can't remember the last time we had an issue in California because it's illegal. It's state law that they can't, the farmer cannot spray pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, even pre-emergence in the whole month of February because of all the bees that are there. 8% of every bee, honeybee in the United States is in California in the month of February with the pollination event. And so it is state law, and it's $50,000 first offense. You know, they don't monkey around, and so none of the farmers do it. And because of that, and so we very seldom, there'll be a couple of guys, road guys that spray us with a little bit of pre-emergence, little times, type of thing like that, but we get hit hard here. And one of the big things that is coming along now is neonicotinoids. Neonicotinoids is coming on the scene and it's coming on hard. There's a lot of scientific studies that went out this year because probably last year was one of the largest loss of bees in the United States in probably 3 decades. Percentage wise, upwards to 60% of all honeybees lost. It was bad. Anyway, and so a lot of commercial and or individuals sent their bees in to be tested. And it goes back to neonics. Neonicotinoid poison. So what is a neonicotinoid? Neonicotinoid is a pesticide that is systemic. It's in the plant. It starts with they spray the seed on some of those plants and that is germinated. So it starts with a coating on the seed and or irrigated. They are putting it in drip irrigation. So a lot of the drip irrigation in the valley using neonics because it's very effective. It's extremely effective. But the problem is that everything that plant produces in its nectar and its pollen has neonics in it. And so that bee, when she gathers that pollen, especially the pollen, brings it back and then feeds it to the entire colony. That's why it's so devastating. And it's not like it doesn't hit them right now. That's the problem. If it just hit them whether they were on the plant, whether it's corn or whatever they're feeding on, the flower of the vineyard or the orchards, and they died there, that'd be fine. But no, they gather that pollen, that nectar, bring it back and feed it in the colony. It spreads throughout the colony, and we've had a number of beekeepers that have been affected this last year in the Grand Valley, and more so because I believe part of the problem is the neonicotinoids half-life. You heard me talk about this half-life on some of those, not all of them, but there's 5 different neonics that are being produced by Monsanto and Bayer. That's the 2 companies that are doing it. A couple of those, the half-life is 9 years. 9 years. In other words, if they quit spraying, if they quit using it right now, for it to be half as potent, it takes 9 years. And so so the residuals are building up. That's the problem. The residuals in the ground are building up. And so the last year's neonics that they use are contributing to this year's, and they're using the same amount. And so it's just being elevated. In fact, there are some areas in the United States that they're testing the aquifer and finding parts per million of neonicotinoid in the aquifer, not just in the water table, in the aquifer, which is 1,000 feet down. So it is Europe, all of EU outlawed these in the late 90s. That's how bad it is. Across the board. But yet, there's still a number of states now in the United States, there's, I think, 15 states now, especially after last year of all the bees taking a hit. They either regulated them or they outlawed them statewide. And Colorado was one of the first ones to regulate it, but they say you cannot be used by the individual. You have to be a commercial pesticide applicator. But that's where the problem is. It's not in the individual, it's in the commercial applications. So anyway, just to let you know, that's part of our IPM and how to deal with that. Well, number one, our rotating comb. Because those residuals are building up in the comb. I look at one of the frames of comb, if there's any propolis in any of the cells at all, just one, they propolize a cell. You understand what that is? When the propolis is the bee glue that they bring in. They also use it as an antiseptic, is also as part of their immune system. And so if there's poison in any area of that, on that comb, they will propolize it over. They'll cap it. Propolis. And if I find any propolis at all, that they're telling you, hey, this is poison. They know it's poison. They propolized it. I'll pull it. I won't even, well, this is 90% good. That if they're telling me it's bad, and I got a stack of it that 2 years ago I never would have pulled. Never would have. Because some of it's like brand new, some of it was a year old. But I'm pulling because it's got its cells are propolized over. And a comb that's looking old, and it just you gotta remember those residuals are building up. And you're just doing the bees. And I've noticed a huge difference. I started doing that. It helped considerable in some of those.
And 2 years ago, on some of my hives, the entrance was right here. This is a single box, and there's an entrance right here. The frame that was right down in front of the entrance, they started propolizing here on the wood. Big old chunk, it was just like covered, like 3 or 4 inches back, like up this high. On both sides, they would just cover it. They were getting some kind of pesticide from somewhere and bringing it inside, and the hive knew that. So right as they were flying in, right where they were landing and walking up, that's where it was getting. They were propolizing it all over. So all those frames went in the burning pile.
Any questions?
So we get rid of the foundation.
I used to just pop foundation and pop the old one out and put a new plastic foundation in. I'm tossing the whole thing. I mean, why even bother with it? Because what I'm saying is I'm saving $2 and it's just setting that whole hive back. By saving, I saved a couple bucks, but this is a real fight. And it's as devastating as the Varroa. In other words, in talking to Randy Oliver, well, his son is the one Randy just does all the scientific studies, but his son Eric Oliver is taking over the operation, is the beekeeper there. He's commercial. And I buy cells from Eric, okay, to diversify my genetics. So they're not too far away. So they're on the way to where we go. So we stop in, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. All commercial beekeepers do that a lot out there. Work with each other. So Eric, I need to pick up a couple hundred cells again this year. I went, ask what prices are. I can't do it. So I've been buying them from him for 5 years. So I can't do it this year. So, well, what's going on? They lost 70%. He lost 70% the outfit, 2,000 colonies. And I know it's not mite load. I know it's not mite load. He's the expert. So it was neonicotinoid. Neonics got him. So when Randy Oliver is losing that many, there's a problem. So what I'm saying is there is that problem is just as detrimental as Varroa. Now, what can you do if you are close to, here, Palisade area, how many are in Palisade area? Okay. And there's some big discussions, and I used to pollinate, five different growers up there. And I'm down to one, and I'm thinking about pulling out of that one too. And this is the conversation, and they said, you know, what are you using? What are your pesticide applications when you do it, and what are you using? And two of them didn't even know they were neonics till he told me what the name was. Said, well, are you using neonics? No. Said, well, we don't use that. I said, well, what's the name of the pesticide? He told me, said, yeah, that's neon. Really? I said, yeah, and show them on the webpage, you know, this is it. They did not know. Said, yeah, well, good luck pollinating your cherries, because it's not me. Cherries is, you have to have a pollinator for cherries, if you didn't know that. And apples, pears, cherries, that's the ones in the valley that require a pollinator. And so, and that's, they're having a hard time finding anybody to come in, because I'll drop off 36 in a yard, and I'll pick up 5, 6 are still alive. Yeah, so, and they don't pay me to do that. So that was a conversation. I said, well, how much were you gonna charge me more? I said, well, if you want me to pollinate, it's gonna be $200 a colony. I can't do that. Well, that's what it cost me from here, because they're dead when I pull them out. And then all the comb, I'm gonna have to go through the comb too. So it's like, what do you do? Well, it's education, and it's gonna come down, it's money. It works. It is a pesticide that works really good. And they don't have to worry about all the issues that they did. But now, you know, you don't have pollinators. One of the things that you can, how many out in the country, you got, you're close to hay fields or whatever, you can tell what they're using as well. And the canary in the coal mine when it comes to beekeeping is the butterfly. The little white and yellow butterflies. Okay, if they got butterflies, you're good. Because that's the first thing to go. That's the most temperamental insect out there. So if you see butterflies, you know that farmer is not heavy spraying, or they're not spraying at a time that's detrimental. So they're gonna hit at least once, probably twice early, all the hay fields for weevil. And hopefully and just go talk to them. If there's a farmer next to you, especially if you got a little bottle of honey, take it with them. Hey, I'm a beekeeper right over here. And talk to them and say, is there any way that you can let me know when you're going to be spraying? And then you can just lock your colony down for a day.
So are there some
Names of what?
Neonicotinoids. You can
just Google it and they'll give you the list. It's they're long, their scientific name, you know, whatever it is. But there's one that they use primarily here in the valley. It's the vineyards that use it a lot in their drip irrigation. Yeah.
We were talking a couple meetings ago too, that they were using the neonics and the Bonnie brand seedlings that we buy at Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's. They use them in all of those. That's why they're finding all of that. So like the yield on all the vegetables we're growing at home isn't very good anymore, because they're like saturated in as well.
So what's the brand on that?
Bonnie.
Bonnie brand, okay. So
Actual like local. Yes.
Olson uses
Who's this?
Olson's greenhouse. So they're the ones doing the pet plants for Google and Walmart.
Yeah.
No, mine was different. Olson's greenhouse is the one that does all the pet plants. I used to be a maintenance man, so I know all of it.
so, yeah.
All the dirty secrets.
Anyway, so there's just a part of the information, just a little window. So you take the information, get your calendar. Okay, so you know, okay, I'm gonna be dealing with pesticide, herbicide, fungicide during the summer, so I need to make sure part of my IPM is gut health. I'm gonna help them deal with that because there's gonna be some residual, whether it's all out, boom, you got dead bees out the front, and that's a terrible thing. Pile of dead bees, they got sprayed, just hit a little bit where you're gonna help them out. So give them some help along the lines of nutrition. As for mite load, when would be one of the best times to knock down the mites? If you're not using synthetics, if you're using organic. So when would that be?
Yesterday.
2 months ago. Right now. So you can oxalic acid vaporization right now in any day that's above 50 because they broke cluster. The reason why we don't do it when they're clustered is because in their tight cluster, the bees on the inside of that cluster don't get the vaporization. It doesn't penetrate that cluster. So if they broke cluster and they're all doing it, that oxalic vapor and any of those mites, Freddy mite, boom, they drop. That's the great thing about that. It takes about 2-3 days and that's gonna hit them. And so wouldn't that be great? Going into the spring with 0 mites.
Wow.
And mite free going into a springtime where they're just gonna be building up and happy campers and they don't have to deal with these viruses and again, you got your comb cleared out, ready to go, and so they're not dealing with heavy residuals of the pesticides that they've carried over. And that's so there's just a couple of things so your IPM, and your calendar, look at your calendar, okay. And then plan your calendar, stick to the plan. That's important. Don't let that get by, because so oftentimes, man, I should have done it. And now there's a big old mite load and I'm behind the 8 ball and my bees aren't doing anything. They're not growing. I don't know why they're not growing. And there's a couple of issues there. So that IPM deals with your pest, which is right now the main thing is we don't have hive beetle. If you've ever had to deal with hive beetle, it is nasty, it's terrible. So you are very, very blessed to be here in Colorado. We don't have hive beetle, a small hive beetle. So basically the main ones are the varroa, occasionally a couple of praying mantises, a skunk. That's part of your IPM. How many have had skunk issues? You might not even know you have a skunk issue. Outside the front door, the ground gets really shiny and pushed down and flat. Anybody see that? That's a skunk. They do is they knock on the door in the middle of the night. Bee comes out, they grab that bee and just go down to the ground and push it in the ground. They eat it. They do that all night long. So that's, you can tell, you walk up to and you're wondering what's going on here. The ground's real flat now. You wouldn't know because you got travel, but.
Well, I know because they get grumpy and I got cameras.
Oh, yeah.
So we do have a question on Zoom. They were asking what's the best time of year to use Swedish sponges?
I use them all year long. So I got Swedish sponges now. I just do them all year long. And I refresh them about every 65 days or as needed. I always have a bag of them with me when I'm going in there. So how many do extended oxalic acid Swedish sponges? Okay. Have you noticed Wet Tex is the one brand that lasts longer than any other one? If you got the cheap Amazon ones, the first time you try to scrape them, they disintegrate. And they just fall apart. But those that you can, because you're doing a hive inspection, so you're moving those sponges. Begin with, they're pretty easy, but after a while they propolize them. And if you tear them apart, we'll just throw a new one on there. And so keep them on if that's what you're doing. And it'll keep mite load down. So whatever you decide you're going to use, how you're going to use it, put that on the calendar. So right now, good time for oxalic acid vaporization. If you have, how many have not done anything since last year? They're gonna admit that?
It's only 14 days.
Nobody's done anything since last year, okay? So if it was the last time he was in your hive, and you know, hit him with oxalic acid or whatever you did. Here's a better question. When's the last time you did a mite wash and you knew your mite load? That's a good question. So if you don't know what you're dealing with and you don't know what your mite load is, then you don't know how to treat. But right now, you know, it's pretty much, it's done. Whatever it is. When it comes to mites on knowing the load. But you can, on that bottom board, you can put, you get a sheet of white poster board or whatever it might be, slide it under the bottom, on the bottom board, and then do your oxalic acid treatment and see what the mite drop is. So, yeah. Well, if it's like poster board, well, don't leave it in there like all you know, a month. Hours. Are you feeding your bees? Need more time. He's got a killer bee.
We have a beekeeper in the Delta Beekeepers meeting who doesn't do any mite washes. Whenever he's gonna check his mites, he just slides the board in there and fogs them in his whole yard. And then he comes back the next day and slides the boards out. And he's gotten, well, okay, this one's got too many. I mean, he doesn't have a scientific like 3 per, you know, per 300, but he can tell what his mite load is in each one. And then whichever one's needed, then he'll vaporize them again in, you know, 5 days or whatever his schedule is. But he just doesn't ever do an actual wash.
And you know, we don't wash every hive, so it's just like we go in, and this is kind of the go-to. I see that there's a problem. This hive's doing great. This one, This one's just not where it needs to be. The bees don't look like they should look. They're a little lethargic. They're not flying. There's some bees in there. I might watch that one. And some say, well, why do you might watch the weak one? They need all the bees. No, I'm going to find out if that's the problem. Because if it's not a mite load, then it's another issue. It's probably bacterial or fungal. I need to treat it differently than I do if it's if it's mites. Does that make sense? So basically, know what your mite load is, and then that's part of your IPM. How am I going to treat? When I'm going to treat? What I'm going to treat? And then also the different pests. So get yourself a calendar, kind of get a plan. This is what I'm going to do this year. This is a good time to start that plan, and then stick your plan. And not only will you be happy because you're going to make some honey this year, I'd love to see everybody put up at least 80 pounds of honey per colony. It's doable. I do that every year. Every year, at least 80. Some of them are 120. There's a couple of them 150. So that's very doable. I'd like to see you do that. So we'll get you there. Couple things you need to roll with. Yep.
One of the easiest things that helps everything up here, probably with the exception of Varroa, is having a healthy colony. Doing these things that he's talking about with the super DFM, with oxalic vapor, with feeding them. The best defense against any of that is having a good, strong colony. Same way, wax moths, anything you can think of, a good, strong colony is the best defense, just like you. Everybody else can get sick with the flu. If you have a good immune system, then you have a lot less chance of getting it. It's the same way. Healthy bees are the key. There were some questions in that. I would say probably beginning of February, maybe 15th of February would be what I would go with up where I am. It's a little higher.
I still have yellow jackets. And one of the places in the yard, I mean, still have yellow jackets. What? Right out loud. So I mean,
There's stuff flying.
yeah.
Down there in the valley's probably all year round, huh?
Have you heard any, something that really concerns me is Man Lake was selling these.
But your bees won't go to it, the boss will. I just keep one by each side.
Go ahead.
Man Lake was selling these vaccinated bees for
Yeah.
cowbird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that could destroy bees in the country. Okay, foul brood is spread by spores. Okay, and it will kill the hive. And that's what controls it, and you need to burn the equipment, burn your wood.
Yeah.
Okay, now, think about this, you've got these vaccinated bees that are somewhat resistant. Okay, their hive is full of the spores, but it doesn't kill them. You got 50,000, 100,000 typhoid Marys spreading them out, okay? And what's gonna happen in 2 years, there ain't gonna be in the valley,
Yeah,
okay? And that's the most,
that was a
most insane thing I've ever,
Yeah.
can't believe that they would do that.
It was it came on a little bit strong, but they really backed off of that. There's not a whole lot of people that are purchasing those because it really isn't. In our area, it's not an issue. There are some areas of the country that EFB is prevalent.
It was in Orchard Mesa, I had, went over, this is a few years back.
Yeah.
Went over with a friend of mine, some guy had advertised bees,
Yeah,
couple hives for sale.
sure.
And I checked, they had foul brood, you can stick a toothpick in there and it'll come out
Yeah,
stinky, whatever.
sure.
And that was in Orchard Mesa here, right off Sea Road. So it's here, but if they come out with these vaccinated typhoid Mary bees, everybody in 2 years is gonna have it. And
I
and you
I
have to
don't
burn
know.
all your equipment. If you ever wanted to control, if it could ever be controlled again.
Yeah, that's, same thing is just hygienic, so that's a hygienic bee, not the vaccinated bee, but a hygienic bee is what we're after anyway, so it just keeps, that hygienic bee is more than just something to take care of the row, but they keep a clean house. They keep the bottom boards clean, so the hygienic bee is something that is genetically, we're already genetically mating for that anyway, so. That's the answer. And again, it came on and then I don't hear too much of it anymore. As in my circles and that I deal with guys that, 10,000 colonies, one guy's 30,000, so we're not interested in that. So it's like, so maybe if you. Yeah, I know.
The mail
Yeah.
on country, you could have things go down fast.
Wasn't that also one was we using phages to combat them? Cause I remember in bee college, they were bringing that up for foul brood, they were using phages. So phages was microorganism bugs that actually would go in and eat the foul brood spores. So I
I'm
wonder
not
if
sure what the vaccination was.
so I wonder if that's, they go to get rid of that.
Yeah, I mean, all you could do is.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, 'cause
Anybody else? Yeah.
Best.
Provap. I think that's the clubs.
Yeah.
So do you still have that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they make a 110 version if you're close enough to an outlet, or they make a battery version.
Okay.
Provap 110 or Provap. So it's
Regular
either,
like a drill battery in it.
yeah, Milwaukee or they make Milwaukee or,
The difference is the vaporizers cost the same, but you got to buy the batteries, which are a little expensive for the battery one, so you just got
but
to.
you already have the wall or Milwaukee ones. Yeah. Yeah,
You got
yeah, I have one of those.
Look at them.
Well, which one do you have? Both have Provap and.
We have for different ones.
The first one they made.
Okay.
The very first one, and then, but we got the bazooka now, so. All right, any other questions? Yep,
Have they done a study with the effects on human consumption of the neonics as it's in everything?
yeah, it makes
Or do they
sense.
even care about that, slowly killing us more
Yeah.
or something?
Imagine it's carcinogenic or it's like any other pesticide that causes cancer.
Yeah, I'll just.
Especially in California, if you live in California, you get cancer, a lot more stuff there than you do anywhere else. You don't notice
Yeah,
that.
well, let's, the labels definitely. Oh, yeah. So in like 10 years, everyone will have cancer more from all the fruits and veggies. Yeah. Buy organic only kind of stuff, I guess, if
Good.
that's even a thing.
So,
technically.
If you need to sign up. They're taking them right now, and if you just want to go online and go to Western Colorado Beekeeping Association and you can fill it out there. Thanks. All right.
Good night, everybody.